Revolutions are a fascinating aspect of history. In fantasy, they can be used to evoke the characters' need to fight for something bigger than themselves. Fantasy revolutions give us a lens to explore real-world struggles like oppression, hope, and the messy road to change. But they also bring something unique to the table: magic, prophecies, and kingdoms teetering on the edge of collapse. Revolution, however, is a very complicated social, cultural, and political phenomenon that should be explored with a due sense of complexity. When done poorly in fiction, it can come across as juvenile, as if dethroning the current evil leader would magically solve every problem in your setting. So how can we avoid these pitfalls?
When tackled in fantasy, revolutions allow us to explore themes of systematic injustice, personal sacrifice, and hope. But because of the fantasy coating on it, the stories also have the freedom to push boundaries, blending the political intrigue normal to the revolution story with fantastical elements like how can people in the setting use magic or dragons to influence political decisions or ideological maneuvering. Revolution stories often depict peasants rising against a corrupt monarchy or a chosen one rallying oppressive folk. However, the stories are always more interesting when they explore beyond just the process of overthrowing the old order. They're fascinating when they also explore how the new leadership will imagine a new order and the messy, painful journey that it takes to get there. The idea of the video today is to explore how to craft revolutions in your story in a way that makes them feel real, with motivations, factions, stakes, the aftermath of the revolution, and the insane logistics necessary to pull it off successfully, and a lot of people usually ignore. So let's get to it.
First things first, let's define a revolution in general terms. Revolutions can be understood as large-scale uprisings with the goal of achieving systemic change. They go beyond individual battles or localized rebellions. They aim to reshape the foundational structures of society. This reshaping can come in the form of toppling a monarchy, dismantling a corrupt magical council, or overthrowing centuries of oppressive rule. In fantasy, revolutions are a chance to explore what happens when people demand transformation. They're the stories of ordinary and extraordinary individuals joining forces to take on a seemingly unshakable system.
A good way to make a revolution realistic, of course, is to explore the nitty-gritty of how they actually happen in history. The stories often focus a lot on the ideology, motivation of the revolution, so a more higher-level approach to it. When you delve into the details, to a level of understanding the actual logistical challenges historical revolutions faced, the one you're writing feels much more grounded and realistic.
Let's look at the French Revolution, which is a good case study to explore the logistical challenges of a large-scale uprising. Beyond the dramatic storming of the Bastille, the revolution required immense coordination. Revolutionary leaders had to secure resources like food, weapons, and funds while managing alliances with various factions, some of which had conflicting goals. Convincing ordinary citizens to rise up against entrenched systems of power meant creating a unifying message, which they achieved through pamphlets, speeches, and symbols, like the tricolor flag. Additionally, they faced the challenge of maintaining momentum and discipline among a diverse group of supporters. From urban workers to rural peasants, stories often gloss over these aspects, but the nitty-gritty of how to sustain an uprising, feeding an army, organizing communication, and overcoming internal divisions is what separates a successful revolution from a failed rebellion. When we look at fiction examples, the Capitol Uprising in the Hunger Games, Mockingjay comes to mind. It showcases the intricate logistics of rebellion and systemic change. Katniss and her fight battles use propaganda, strategic alliances, and symbolic acts to inspire widespread resistance. The story highlights the importance of controlling narratives, managing resources, and uniting disparate groups under a common cause. But why even write a revolution? What exactly does this story aspect allow you to explore? Revolutions not only provide action and epic speeches, but they are fertile ground for exploring very impactful themes. They bring justice, inequality, freedom, and resilience to the forefront, showing what happens when people refuse to accept the world as it is.
So through the chaos and hope of a revolution, you can dive into questions about power, sacrifice, and whether true equality is ever achievable. So these themes, they usually make the revolution in your setting feel bigger, and you also tap into the universal struggles that can easily be translated to whatever is going on at the moment in our own political and social climate in some way or another. And in my opinion, art is always better when it makes you reflect about real life in some shape or form.
If you really want to test your characters, throw them into a revolution. These stories push people to their limits, forcing them to confront their beliefs, morality, and loyalties. Would your protagonist betray a friend for the greater good? Can they stay true to their ideals when compromise seems like the only option? Revolutions are messy and morally gray.
Revolutions let you explore how far your character will go for what they believe in and what they'll do when faced with the cost of that belief. Also, it's a really good tool to explore character motivation. A revolutionary leader may be equally motivated by the desire to change the world for the better, so an altruistic desire, but also to cement themselves as a historical figure and a potential new political leader. Both things can be true at once because people are complicated. So it's often fascinating when a character is motivated by both selfish and selfless reasons and how the other characters react to that.
Revolutions in fantasy can also be so compelling because of how closely they represent struggles for change in the real world. The audience can see echoes of historical movements, current events, or even their own frustrations with the world around them.
So this collection makes revolution actually feel personal, giving readers a reason to cheer, cry, and hope alongside the characters fighting for the better future. When the author explores how propaganda, different agendas, different economic and social forces going against or in favor of change interact with each other and why they act the way they act, the story reflects even more how complicated and messy our political structures currently are and have always been in real life.
Now, I wanted to go over the key elements a revolution plot could have in a story. Every revolution starts with a clear injustice, something so intolerable that people are willing to risk everything to change it. Maybe it's an oppressive regime, economic exploitation, or crushing inequality.
For revolution to feel real, you need to show how the current injustices affect your characters on a personal level. Are they starving because of unfair policies, forced to fight in endless wars? The more specific and relatable the injustices, the more the audience empathizes with the cause, instead of just telling how the characters are suffering from feminine exploitation from afar, from the king's point of view. Place a character in the center of it. This way you can ground the effects of the current problematic regime in a more tangible way.
Now, you need to think about the spark that ignites the revolution. This catalyst is the pivotal moment that pushes people from discontent to action. It could be a tragic death, a public act of defiance, or a betrayal that exposes the oppressor's true colors. Without this trigger, people might grumble and suffer, but they won't mobilize. In Les Miserables, the death of General Lamarck serves as a strong catalyst. Lamarck was seen as a symbol of hope and a rare voice for the oppressed within the French government. His death signals to the people that any chance of peaceful reform has died with him, and it pushes the revolutionaries to take to the streets. Revolutions are rarely simple, united effort. They're messy, with factions splintering over goals and methods. Some want peaceful reform, others demand radical, immediate action. These divisions can create tension and drama as allies turn into rivals. Exploring these ideological clashes makes your revolution feel more realistic and gives you room to dig into the moral complexities of change. The Russian Revolution of 1917 is a perfect example of factional divisions within a revolution. The Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, advocated for immediate and radical socialist reform through the overthrow of the provisional government and the establishment of a dictatorship of the proletariat. In contrast, the Mensheviks sought a more gradual transition to socialism.
So when you create these ideological divisions, you can create intense rivalries with clashes that go beyond just between the revolutionaries and the old regime, but within the revolutionary movement itself. For example, the Bolsheviks' eventual victory highlighted the complexities of the revolutionary dynamics, as well as the role of leadership, strategy, and public support in determining which faction prevails. There is just so much room for conflict when you add opposing factions within the same revolutionary movement. What's going to happen next, right? Will the factions put their differences aside and work together for a common goal to reach compromise? Or one of them is already planning to take over the other after the revolution is successful? There are endless avenues to explore here.
Every revolution needs a leader or leaders, often a charismatic figurehead, a reluctant hero, or a collective council. Leadership shapes the revolution's path. A good leader inspires hope, but they also face crushing burdens, like making life or death decisions or balancing personal values with the movement's needs.
So when you make the leader of the revolution a complex figure, as someone who's both willing to sacrifice themselves for the betterment of other people's lives, just as much they are being motivated by the glory of being immortalized in history, also adds many possibilities of conflict and thematic exploration in the story. That means their internal conflict can also come from many different sources.
Kelsier from Mistborn is an excellent example of a charismatic leader who embodies the burdens and complexities of revolutionary leadership. Kelsier uses his reputation and charm to inspire hope among the oppressed Skye, rallying them against the Lord Ruler. Kelsier's personal trauma, his bold but reckless decisions that comes from his egocentrism, and his willingness to sacrifice himself for the cause highlight the heavy cost of leadership. Revolutions come at a price, and ignoring that makes them feel hollow. Sacrifices, lives lost, relationships broken, and cities destroyed should be woven into the story. Morally too, revolutions often blur the line between right and wrong. What happens when the oppressed become the oppressors? What's the emotional toll on the characters? Exploring these questions adds weight to the revolution's victory or failure. Les Miserables captures the heartbreaking cost of revolution. The students' uprising ends in tragedy, with nearly all of them dying for their cause. Yet, their sacrifices inspire others to dream of a better world. This duality, the futility of their actions versus the hope they represent, is what makes the conclusion of the story so impactful. Revolutions aren't won on passion alone. Strategy and tactics are vital. Show your characters grappling with real challenges, like limited resources, infighting, or betrayal. Highlighting these struggles adds authenticity to your story and keeps the stakes high. Make the victories hard-earned and the losses devastating. In The Expanse, the Belters' revolution is a good example in strategy. Lacking the military power of Earth or Mars, they rely on guerrilla tactics and intimate knowledge of the asteroid belt to outmaneuver their enemy. The end of a revolution isn't always a happy one. Sometimes the new order is just as flawed as the old, or the ideals of the movement get corrupted along the way.
Exploring the aftermath of the revolution to me is one of the most fascinating aspects of this type of stories. You need to explore how the power is now distributed, whether promises are kept, and who benefits from these promises can be just as compelling as the revolution itself. It's a chance to dive into the hypocrisy and unintended consequences of systematic change. When the new leader are faced with these challenges, maybe they could realize why some of the moral compromises were made by the former empire, and see the former empire with a different light as well.
Animal Farm by George Orwell is a brilliant exploration of revolution's aftermath. The animals overthrow their human oppressors, only to see their ideals corrupted as the pigs seize power. The new regime becomes just as oppressive as the old. It's a haunting reminder that revolution doesn't always mean progress. When you explore the motivations behind uprisings, the ideological clashes between factions, the human costs, and the logistical challenges, your revolution can feel grounded, gripping, and meaningful. Revolutions let us tackle universal themes like justice, freedom, and sacrifice, while adding a layer of political intrigue and fantastical elements. Even though in fantasy the battles can be fought with magic and superpowers, the revolution should still be grounded in the elements we discussed here to make it feel realistic and impactful.
So once again, it's always good to think beyond just the surface level drama of overthrowing the old order. Ask yourself what motivates your characters, how factions interact with each other, and what the cost of victory really is. dive into the nitty-gritty, for example, resource shortages, propaganda campaigns, and what are the moral dilemmas of leadership. And don't forget to explore the aftermath of the change. What does better actually look like? And is it ever truly achievable? The aspects of the revolution may feel fantastical because we're talking about the fantasy journal, but they have the potential to really resonate with real-world politics when done right. Let me know in the comments any other examples of well-written revolution fantasy you may know of, or just anything else you want to see explored in the channel in the next few videos. So see you next time.
Come join our Tavern discussion of fantasy storytelling and world building here at Loregeist. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching, and may your tales be ever epic.